Hi Team Value, JJ here, welcome back. Well, the 13F filings are out from super investors for the first quarter of 2024. So we can see what they've been buying. And today we're going to focus on Chinese stocks like Alibaba, JD, Baidu, and others. We'll see who's been buying them besides Michael Burry, but he has been buying. So let's get into it. Okay, this is Michael Burry's portfolio. We can see it's just over $100 million at the moment as of the end of that quarter. And we can see here JD is the top position, the top US position that is, even though it's a Chinese stock. These are traded in the US, the ADRs, and it's showing JD is the top at 9.53% and Alibaba 8.74% is the second position, and he's added to these 80% and 66% just in that last quarter. It's not the only Chinese stocks he has as well. If we go down the list here, we can see down the bottom at 4% is Baidu as well. So he's added to the Chinese position significantly. But I'll let you in on a little secret, which I don't think I've seen anywhere else. A number of people do these kinds of videos, and we can see here over at Ticker Terminal that JD's not actually his largest position according to this. This was updated in 2023. And I think he probably hasn't changed it since then. He is known to trade in and out, but this is British American Tobacco. This says is his top position at over 10%. Now, the next so-called super investor to be buying into Chinese stocks in that past quarter is David Tepper from Appaloosa Management. And he has apparently been beating the market for multiple decades at this point. He's been doing really well. It's over a $6 billion portfolio, so much bigger than Michael Burry's portfolio. He's quite the star fund manager, really. And we can see that Alibaba's top position here is at 158%, and it's 12.17% of the portfolio. Well, that's of the US stocks here, or US traded stocks. And Amazon, it's the second position. They've been reducing them. He's reduced quite a few here of these stocks. Microsoft, Meta, Nvidia reduced 44%, reducing significantly these Mag 7 stocks and buying into China more. Interesting positioning there in the first quarter that, knocking back on those Mag 7 that are quite elevated. We're going to focus on the Chinese stocks here. Pinduoduo has bought into that, added to that, 170%. He did own all of these already, adding to Alibaba, adding to Pinduoduo, adding to Baidu, 188% there. That's 2.83% of the portfolio. And this is around $189 million. Pinduoduo is $244 million. And right up the top there, Alibaba is actually $814 million. It's a really big position. The better part of $1 billion position there at this point. And as we go down the portfolio here, we do find JD, which he's bought for the first time. It's nearly $100 million position, which is only 1.49% of the portfolio. Notice this FXI buy here, which is iShares China Large Cap ETF, also bought into that at 2.29% of the portfolio. So really an overall bet on China tech, really. And here's another one, KWeb, which is Crane Shares CSI China Internet stock, also bought in that 1.36%. So a pretty big bet on China here, on the tech sector in particular. A number of stocks, a number of ETFs, and on the sector in general. That's $91 million investment in that alone. So David Tepper buying significantly into Chinese stocks and selling down the US big caps, mega caps in that past quarter. It will be interesting to see what he does in the next quarter. Now, if you're getting value out of this episode, I'd really appreciate it if you manage to smash that like button to help the algorithm to spread it to more people. And if you haven't subscribed yet, maybe think about doing that as well. Next, we have a third so-called super investor investing in China, Howard Marks. Well known, he does the Howard Marks memo, which I've made videos on before. Every so often he writes a memo, which has become pretty well known, pretty famous. He's from Oaktree Capital Management. They're known for distressed situations, and he has said publicly before he did hear that China was uninvestable. That was being bandied around quite a lot, over the last year or two. It's uninvestable. And he said that when he hears that, he tends to prick up his ears, and he's followed that up, or his company, his firm has followed that up with some buys in China. We have to go down the list here. We see JD.com is 2.08%. They've added to it. So they already owned it. They've added to that. And further down is Alibaba, 1.46. They've added to that, so increasing their position over that. And another one, Baidu, buying it for the first time, 422,000 shares. Li Auto, I think they're the only investors that are invested in this company. And also Yum China Holdings as well. So a number of China positions here. Also YY, which is Joy. That's a Chinese company involved in gaming and video streaming and so forth. Now, this is an overall look of all of these super investors on this list who do own Alibaba at this point. We can see David Tepper up the top at 12% of the portfolio and adding that 158%. Michael Burry is second at 8.74% of the portfolio. Charlie Munger, who has reduced in this last quarter. Of course, he died, so it's the Daily Journal Corp that's doing it on his behalf. And I just wonder whether, if he was still alive, he would be doing that. And, you know, Alibaba's gone up just in the last month, and they're buying back a lot of shares. I've done a video on their earnings recently, which I didn't think too bad, especially because they're buying back shares. They're doing a dividend. I just wonder if Charlie Munger would have sold out. I think he probably wouldn't have, and they're selling it down 35%. It'll be interesting to see if they continue to sell that down in the next quarter. We have Samantha McLemore here from Patient Capital Management as well, who owns it in 2.23% of the portfolio. We'll have a look at that, adding 9.84. So the fourth investor there that's added to it in this past quarter. We have a few others that haven't added to it but own it. Prem Watsa, Guy Spear, who's known for not doing much, just holding on to stock. So he's had it for a while. He hasn't done anything with it. His friend Monish Pabra sold out of Alibaba, but he's been holding on to it. And we have a number of other investors. There's Howard Marks down there, Christopher Davis, and, you know, minimal, less than 1% of the portfolio there, but there's quite a few investors there. And here we have Samantha McLemore's portfolio here for Q1, another super investor, over $2 billion portfolio, and we're looking for these Chinese stocks here. She owns Alibaba, and it's interesting to see that the top position reduced a little bit, 10%, Amazon, and there is Alibaba there at 2.23% of the portfolio, adding to it just in this past quarter, like many of these other investors. Here's the activity for the quarter from the fund, and we can see there that it's number 4 on the list there at 9.84%. Now, I said we'd go a bit deeper, go the extra mile here, and on GuruFocus here with Alibaba, we can see the Guru trades of what's been going on. If we go down here, we can see the latest trades or recent trades for Alibaba, and we can see other investors in the Guru portfolios here who have bought into it, and we can see that Daily Journal Corp, you know, minus 35% there, but also we can see Bailey Gifford and Richard Sena there, both added to it. We've got a few investors here, including Tweedy Brown, Ken Fisher reducing, Jeffries Group reducing 95% there. Jim Simons, who's recently died, so that would be his fund. You know, I don't think he probably had a lot to do with it near the end there, but they've added to 173%. They trade very quickly, so you never know how long they've been in it. Algorithmic trading. Prime Cap Management's in it. Jeremy Grantham has added hugely to the position there also. So these other investors that you don't see on Dataroma there have added to it. Chris Davis, Dodge and Cox, Howard Marks, we saw that. And some reductions too. Ron Barron reducing position by 10.44%. We saw David Tepper there. Lee Ainsley sold out of it. He was in the last video buying some small caps. The last video I did was about small caps. Go and see that if you haven't already. I'll put a link in the description to that and at the end as well. They have sold out of this. Stephen Cohen, who's more of a trader, has reduced during the quarter. George Soros sold out. Now, these are all the investors listed on Dataroma who do own JD at this point. Michael Burry up the top there with 9.53%. David Tepper at only 1.49%. A first buy of JD in this quarter. Michael Burry, of course, adding that 80%. Howard Marks, Christopher Davis, and Chase Coleman both reduced in that quarter. Chase Coleman for Tiger Global Management reduced by 64%. And back to GuruFocus here, where we can see a fuller list of the trades, the latest trades in JD.com. We can see there. And if we go down the page here, we can see the full list of the 14 investors here that own it, fund managers that own it. You can read the screen there. I'm not going to read them all out, but an interesting list. Quite a few investors owning both of these stocks at this point. Now, full disclosure, I am invested in Alibaba stock. It's my biggest cap position, large cap, but I'm interested in small caps. I'm heavily invested in small caps, some mid caps. I don't talk about this much publicly. I do talk about it privately on the Patreon to my Patreon members. If you're interested in small cap stocks and Alibaba, of course, I'll put a link in the description to Patreon. Now, if you're watching this episode on YouTube, I'm going to put a link here to the previous episode, which was about the super investors investing in some small caps. Go and see that now if you haven't seen that already. I'll put a link in the description as well for those watching or listening elsewhere. And thanks to everybody for watching or listening wherever you're doing that. And I'll see you in the next one.